I sat in the midst of our modest living room, the floor covered in newspapers and scattered art tools, helping my 10-year-old son Oliver with his school project. The handmade volcano we had spent all evening creating stood proudly on the coffee table, the baking soda lava gently bubbling over as we watched with eagerness. His face lit up with glee. "Dad, see, it's working!" I smiled at him, ruffling his hair. "Told you it would. We make a terrific team, don't we?" He nodded enthusiastically, but before he could say anything else, the harsh sound of the phone cut through the moment. I sighed, wiped my hands on my jeans, and picked it up. It was Lauren. "We completed the details for the wedding," she said, without so much as a greeting. Her tone was brisk, businesslike, as if she were reading from a prepared statement. "Mom and I are flying business class." I knew what was coming before she even said it. "Of course, you and Oliver will take the bus." I felt my jaw clench, but I didn't allow my voice to waver. "A bus?" Lauren inhaled anxiously. "Planes are expensive, Elliot, and you know how my mother feels about, well, you know. We can't all fly business class." By we, she meant me and Oliver. I glanced at my son, who was still gazing at his volcano, ignorant of the newest insult his mother had casually thrown my way. I had grown used to this over the years, feeling like an afterthought in my own marriage. Lauren came from money, and her mother, Patricia, never let me forget that I did not. I forced my voice to remain even. "Right. A bus sounds amazing." Lauren chuckled gently, the sound grating against my ears. "Don't be dramatic, Elliot. It's just a ride." It wasn't just a ride. It was another reminder that no matter how hard I worked, no matter how much I tried to prove myself, I would always be second class in their eyes. But I didn't argue. There was no point. Lauren hung up with a short, "See you in Florida," and I placed the phone back on the table. Oliver gazed up at me, his innocent blue eyes filled with curiosity. "What's wrong, Dad?" I forced a smile. "Nothing, buddy. Just some last-minute modifications." He tilted his head. "Did Mom say we're taking a bus?" I hesitated, but there was no use in lying. "Okay, we are." His nose scrunched up in disgust. "Buses smell horrible." I chuckled, despite the dissatisfaction gnawing. "At my core, we'll make the most of it. It'll be an adventure, but inside I made a vow. I assured myself this vacation would change everything." The next morning, I packed our bags while Oliver excitedly chatted about the wedding, oblivious to the tightness in my chest. He was still young, still full of wonder, still ready to believe that his mother cared about us as much as we cared about her. "Will there be cake, Dad?" he asked, flinging his favorite action figure into his backpack. "Of course," I assured him. "A wedding always has cake." "Good," he stated firmly, "because that's the only reason I'm going." I laughed and closed up my luggage. "I like the way you think, kid." By the time we arrived at the bus terminal, my patience was already thin. Lauren and Patricia had boarded an early morning flight, their journey undoubtedly packed with champagne and warm towels, while Oliver and I stood in the stale-smelling bus station waiting for our 12-hour journey to begin. Oliver gazed around at the broken floorboards and rows of exhausted travelers sprawled in tight plastic seats. "This place is pretty disgusting," he murmured. I sighed. "Yeah, buddy. I know." We boarded the bus and chose our seats near the window. The moment we sat down, the seat creaked under me, and the faint smell of perspiration and fast food filled the air. Oliver wrinkled his nose. "Dad, this bus stinks." I faked a smile, ruffling his hair. "It'll smell like an adventure soon enough." But inside, I felt the weight of it all. I had worked hard my entire life. I had built a career in finance. I had given everything to my family, and yet, now, I was tossed aside, ignored, belittled. Lauren and Patricia saw me as nothing more than an inconvenience, a placeholder. But they were wrong. This wasn't just a trip. This was the beginning of something new, and after it was over, I would never be in this position again. The room. Oliver had finished his pancakes and was watching cartoons on the hotel TV. He looked up as I walked in. "Did you have your meeting?" I grinned, sitting on the side of the bed. "I did." "Was it about money stuff?" he inquired, scrunching his nose. I chuckled. "Yep, buddy, money stuff." He considered for a second. "Are we going to have more money now?" I paused, then brushed his hair. "Something like that." Oliver grinned. "Cool. Can I get additional syrup next time?" I laughed, shaking my head. "You may have as much syrup as you want." Just then, my phone buzzed. Lauren. Lauren. "Where were you this morning?" I stared at the screen, hesitating. For the first time in our marriage, I had something she didn't know about. I typed back a short response. "Me. Brunch." It didn't take long for her next message to come through. "Lauren. With who?" I smirked. "Me. Just a business meeting." I could practically hear the mistrust in her silence. She was starting to sense it, the shift, and that was only the beginning. By noon, word had already spread around the resort that I had breakfast with Richard. It wasn't only the staff whispering about it. Lauren had heard, and she was not happy. I could feel it in the air when I stepped into the dining room with Oliver. The tension was palpable. Even the typically bustling atmosphere felt quieter. The subtle clink of silverware striking plates sounded too loud. The quiet murmur of voices, all too strained. I turned and noticed Lauren sitting at a table near the window, her sunglasses perched high on her nose despite the fact that we were indoors. Her eyes locked onto mine as soon as I walked in, and for a second, I couldn't help but notice the frigid flicker of scorn in her stare. She didn't stand to meet us. She didn't even smile, simply a hard, harsh look that only deepened as I made my way toward the buffet. Oliver trailed closely behind me, his little hand still in mine. He didn't seem to feel the tension. He was more focused on the variety of food in front of him, his eyes lighting up as he grabbed a plate and filled it full of pancakes, bacon, and scrambled eggs. When I handed him a glass of orange juice and moved to find a seat, it was then that Lauren rose from her table, her chair scraping noisily against the floor. She approached me, her heels clicking with every stride. "Elliot," she murmured, her voice icy but low enough to keep it between us. "We need to chat." I arched an eyebrow. "About what?" She shot a fast glance at Oliver, who was happily enjoying his breakfast. "Not here. When he's not around." I didn't react quickly, instead examining her closely. There was something in her expression, a tinge of desperation, a spark of rage that she wasn't used to feeling. "Fine," I muttered, moving away and taking Oliver to a quieter section of the restaurant. I wanted to finish my meal with him, but I knew better than to put this off. The conversation with Lauren was unavoidable, and I wasn't going to escape it. I watched Oliver shove another forkful of scrambled eggs into his mouth. He seemed oblivious to the tension between his mother and me. I envied something about him sometimes. He didn't carry the burden of grown-up concerns. After a few minutes, Lauren joined me. She sat across from me, her stance tight, her eyes fixed on me with an intensity I hadn't seen in a while. "Why are you doing this?" she asked, her voice low but sharp. "Doing what?" I replied, keeping my tone cool. "You know what I'm talking about, Elliot." Her palms tightened into fists on the table. "You went behind my back and had breakfast with Richard Caldwell. You think I didn't hear the rumors?" I met her stare steadily, refusing to let her frighten me. "You didn't ask me about it, Lauren. You assumed. And honestly, you've made enough assumptions about me to last a lifetime." Her face reddened slightly, and for a second, I felt something change in her, something like shame or maybe dread, but it soon passed, replaced with that usual arrogance. "You don't understand," she said, her voice tight. "This isn't only about you and me. Richard is playing some type of game, and I'm telling you right now, he's not doing this out of the goodness of his heart. I leaned forward, my voice calm but forceful. I never said he was, but he's handing me an opportunity, a real one, and I'm going to take it. Lauren's eyes widened, and for a fleeting second, I saw the mask crack. She wasn't used to hearing me talk like this, like I had a plan, like I was in control. She wasn't used to me making decisions without her. Permission? An opportunity? She mocked, sitting back in her chair. You think you can just waltz in and take charge of something you know nothing about? You're nothing without my family, Elliot. You think a business agreement with Richard is going to change that? I gulped down the hatred swelling in my throat. That wasn't the first time she had reminded me of my place, and I knew it wouldn't be the last, but this time I wasn't going to let it slide.